It's time to talk all things retail. So joining us now is Alexis Browne Roberts, the COO and portfolio manager at Alexis Investment Partners. So Alexis, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, where to begin with earnings, because we've gotten a ton of data just in the last 4 days or so. But walk us through really right now what you're seeing that is working within some of these retail and consumer discretionary focused earnings, and overall really where sentiment stands as of currently right now.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on. Earnings season is going to be very interesting as we've seen. I mean, part of a CEO's job is to really tamper down expectations. And for the consumer retail stocks in particular, they're really at the heart of all of these tariff and kind of in the hot seat for these things. So I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that tampering down expectations from CEOs. And that's part of the reason why for us, even though we do like some of the quality names within consumer and retail, those names that have a little bit more of a diversified portfolio so they can afford to take on some of those costs instead of passing them on directly to the consumers. Consumer retail stocks in general right now just isn't the sector that we're the most excited about.
Okay, so within the retail space and finding some of these more quality names, I mean, right now, is there a tie to quality based on companies not raising prices or committing to not raising prices? As we heard from like Home Depot and Lowe's this week, well, then we also hear from a name like URBN who crushed it objectively, but still is saying, hey, pricing might remain a bit in flux. Target mentioned the same. I mean, will that then change consumer behaviors where consumers will be more loyal to those that aren't trying to raise prices and kind of gouge their consumers?
Well, like I said, I think a lot of it is going to that we're seeing from CEOs is really just trying to tamper down the expectations given the amount of uncertainty that there is right now between tariffs and supply chains and all the things that they're trying to navigate within the retail space. But I definitely do think that that is a differentiation. I mean, we do own Home Depot, we like Home Depot, and that is a strong name in general, but they are one of those that has a more diversified product, a more diversified supply chain, a more US based supply chain, or at least outside of China's supply chain. And I do think that those are things that investors are looking at right now, where you're seeing if they are talking about passing on the price to consumers, you may see the risk of kind of endangering yourselves within that market share. But at the same time, if they take on that cost, then their margins will get hit. So the consumer, although the consumer is strong, the retail stocks are kind of in a hot seat. And again, that is why we're saying that retail stocks aren't necessarily the place that we're most excited about right now.
Okay, so retail stocks not the most excited, but how about when we focus more back on the consumer? Do you think some of these concerns over the consumer uncertainty, consumer stress is overblown? I heard someone the other day say the consumer is always stressed, and I liked that because I can relate to that myself. But do you think some of these fears regarding the outlook for the consumer, I mean, like even just from an economic standpoint, is overblown at this point?
I think consumer has really remained resilient in the face of all of these. I mean, we've seen sentiment go down a lot. We've seen a lot of uncertainty, tariffs, just in general headwinds to the consumer, and yet they keep spending. And I think we'll continue to see that resilience from the consumer play out. And that kind of brings me to one of our favorite ways to look at the consumer is actually a stock that some may argue is more of a fintech stock, but would be the Visa, because then you're not just looking at a particular sect within it, but rather just consumer in general. Um, does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. And I like that because I do think that some of these, like the headlines you see about the consumer are like a bit overblown at this point, honestly. And I know you mentioned that there's this sort of right now relationship between where to go as far as like discretionary versus staples. I am curious, before we let you go, your thoughts on that, because I know that historically everyone flocks to the staples, but that has not really been the case in this period of volatility.
No, I mean, I would still choose discretionary over staples here. Like you said, the consumer's been resilient and a lot of the fears have been kind of overblown. And really, it's not like the staples are much cheaper compared to discretionary right now. But really, I would look outside of either of those stocks right now. What we really like is a more diversified play, maybe like an equal weighted S&P, as well as we've started looking foreign even. just from recognizing not against the consumer or against American at all, but rather just recognizing that we, like a lot of our peers, are underweight foreign. And so maybe looking to nibble at that, not aggressively to avoid getting whipsawed, as well as still sticking with like the big tech Mag 7 names.
Okay, I like that, and great place to leave it because I do always love to resort back to the Mag 7 name. So glad we left it on that note. So appreciate it. Really great discussion and takeaways here from a busy week of retail. Alexis Browne Roberts, the COO and portfolio manager at Alexis Investment Partners.